Okay, here's the first verse of the first section. It's the first verse of the first chapter of the first section of the stanzas on the recognition of the divine, Īśvara-pratyabhijñā-kārikā. And in Sanskrit it goes, Katanchidasadya maheshwarasya dasyam janasyapyupakaramucchan samasta sampat samavapti hetum tat pratyabhijñām upapadayami, which means, having somehow attained through divine grace the rare good fortune of being a servant of the Blessed One and desiring to benefit all beings, I will here make possible in this work, I will make possible the recognition of him as one's own consciousness, which brings with it all good things. When everyone has attained the ultimate goal of recognizing the sovereignty of their own consciousness, I shall be fully satisfied. So this is a really wonderful verse. There's so much. In the Indian tradition, an author tries to hint at all the teachings that will be given already in the first verse. The first verse is the seed, the bija of the whole work, you know. So let's look at it. Even the word somehow is important here. Katanchit in Sanskrit, somehow implies by some miracle. You know, it implies wonder. In fact, the word somehow in this context implies a sense of wonder. Having somehow, by some miracle, attained through divine grace, the rare good fortune of being a servant of God. And he uses the word Shiva, but we know from Utpaladeva's writing that he means Shiva in the sense of God with a capital G, the divine consciousness that underlies all things. So he doesn't mean the word Shiva as a god of a pantheon, and he makes that abundantly clear if you read his work. And of course, the literal meaning of the word Shiva is blessed, the Blessed One. So he is implying here that being a servant, you know, being a servant of the Blessed One is the best possible state one could attain in life, and that we should all strive to attain that state. So what does that actually look like? Well, if you're in service to humanity, if you're seeking to, in your own small way, make this world a better paradise, then you are in service to the divine, right? So dasyam means the state of being a servant of the divine. So in what way are you in service? This is a great New Year's inquiry, right? If you are raising children in such a way that they're more likely to recognize their innate worth, which is a delicate matter, right? Overpraising your children can lead to entitlement issues, can make them a bit narcissistic, right? And that's why we talk about innate worth, because it's not about believing that your mind or your body mind is any better than anyone else's, even if it's smarter or faster than some people. It doesn't make you better, right? And so it's your innate worth, your innate divinity that we seek to become in touch with. And with children, for example, we don't actually help them get in touch with it by praising them and saying, oh, you're so special or whatever. We help them get in touch with it by inviting them to feel into their own deepest heart where they feel quiet inside, even if just for a moment, because for children, it's just a moment usually. They feel quiet inside and they feel something special, something innately special, not to do with, their so-called talents and abilities. So that's just another way of being in service. So there's so many ways of being in service to the divine. And I would argue that each one of you is in service some of the time. So the inquiry here is, how are you in service? What are the ways that you're in service? And he also uses the phrase through divine grace, which is important because we cannot actually account for how we enter into this blessed state of being in service to the divine, right? We can't say we deserved it, and we can't actually even explain it, And when you see someone who has no connection to their sacred heart, if you have any sense of reality, you must say, there but for the grace of God go I. Meaning, I would be in that person's position of not having access to the sacred heart if not for grace, because I can't explain how I do have access. And of course, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes you have access to the sacred heart. How can you explain that? You can't make it happen. We all know that. We've all sat enough on the meditation cushion to know you can't make it happen. You can't force it. It happens spontaneously. It's a blessed gift of the Blessed One. And then Utpaladeva adds that, it's because first he's saying it's because he's a servant that he's composing this work, this is an act of service, composing this work of the stanzas and the recognition of the divine. But also, he has a desire. He uses the word icha. He has a desire to benefit other beings. He has a desire to benefit all beings. So there he's signaling that on this path, desire is not bad. Desire need not be considered a bad thing. And that's very different, of course, from some other spiritual paths that sort of demonize desire subtly or obviously, and say you must expunge desire and be desireless. And he's saying, no, what if you turn your desire in this direction? He actively desires to benefit all beings. Right? Janasya upakaram ichan. And on that basis, he engages in this work, and it was a lot of work to write this text that he wrote.